Hey guys, my name is Lauren and I'm from Wanderlust Movement, which is a blog all about South Africa travel. And today I'm joined with Steph.
Hi guys, I'm Steph from Big World Small Pockets. I'm a full-time travel blogger and content creator, and my focus is budget travel, but my real love is budget travel in Africa. I've traveled to 21 countries across the continent. I absolutely love it. So I'm super excited to be joining forces with Lauren today to bring you loads of our top tips and secrets and bits of advice about traveling in Africa on a budget and as a solo female.
Because you're an expert at all things budget travel, especially in the Africa safari space, I'm super keen to pick your brain and just see what your best tips are for people that want to go on a safari without breaking the bank. My first question for you is, what is your go-to trick for finding accommodation that isn't super expensive when planning a safari in Africa?
Yeah, I think often people think you have to plan months in advance. And if you really know what you want to do and you want to do something at peak time, like see the Great Migration at its height in the Masai Mara or the Serengeti, then there definitely is an advantage to booking early. But sometimes you can also grab some last minute deals that are an absolute steal. And this is certainly true for accommodation. I always either use a tour company because they can leverage great deals because they've got bulk buying power. Or if you want to go independently, use booking sites to research accommodation and then go directly. What many people don't realise is that lots of accommodation is priced dynamically. So the closer you get to your stay date, the lower the prices will be because they just want bums in beds, is the phrase in the industry. So if they're not full, booking last minute can be a really great tip. I also do think avoiding larger tour groups and choosing smaller providers can help you get a better deal. Often you're cutting out several stages of middleman costs. And so by going to smaller organisations, particularly those based in Africa, like African Budget Safaris, you can also pick up a better deal than you might do with some of the more famous and global tour organisations.
And what about traveling on the shoulder seasons or like the low season, or like emerald season as it's referred to, like in Botswana? Do you think it's worth it, or is it better to rather go for like the high season where, like where the migration is?
That's such a good point. Shoulder season is what I love. I always go for that. I'm not really that into like super crowded places. Sometimes you can't avoid it, but I would much rather go when the weather is still good, the conditions are still good, but the prices are lower and the crowds are thinner. I think you get a more authentic experience when there's less other travellers around as well. I don't know how you find it as well. Do you enjoy shoulder season?
Yeah, I get like super overwhelmed by being in big crowds, whether it's traveling or just like in day to day. So I really prefer it when it feels more like an intimate experience and you don't have like 50 other cars at a sighting.
Totally. And maybe you could just explain about emerald season, because I'm not sure that everybody would know what that means.
Emerald season is just another term for green season in Africa. So it's usually when there's the rains or just after the rains when the savannah is in a beautiful green color. So like Botswana gets like that at certain times of the year. And then in Kenya and Tanzania when they have their short and long rainy season.
Absolutely. And a great time for bird watching often, I think, as well, isn't it?
Yeah, or the migratory, is it I say that word right?
Migratory, yeah.
Yeah,
That's the one. We know what you mean.
Awesome. And what is your favorite budget safari destination? Seeming you've been to so many, you've been to way more than me, I think.
In terms of destinations, I always think Southern Africa is probably the best deal. And it's also a great option for first-time safari goers. It can just be a little bit less of a cultural surprise or a cultural tone change, especially if you're from Europe or North America. And I think countries like South Africa provide incredible value for money. I mean, the range of experiences that you can have in that country, from bush to beach, amazing cities, and of course you've got the big five, you've got flagship parks like Kruger. I think it's just a great all-rounder, and also the rand, it makes it really great for us, for Europeans and North Americans on the exchange rate at the minute. So not so good for our friends in South Africa, but if you are heading over there and looking to keep things economical.
Yeah, I was gonna say like being able to take advantage of the rand to dollar compared to like East Africa, makes South Africa such a good option.
Absolutely. I mean, you're from South Africa, right? So do you have
Yes.
favorite safari spots there that you would recommend for budget?
I think sometimes you can get really amazing deals at the private reserves. Like they have
Okay.
really good specials I've seen where you can like, stay 3 nights, only pay two. Or if you are South African, they have a really nice SADC rates, which is a nice way to get some savings. But I think if you want to go super budget and you don't mind camping, like camping in Addo and Kruger, or even staying at the chalets, is a really wonderful way to get that in-park experience without staying at like a more collection property.
Definitely. I think camping is such a great tip. I've almost exclusively camped on safari. And I actually love it because I feel like you're more immersed as well in the kind of rawness, the nature, the wildlife, the whole African ecosystem, which is what you're there to experience. So I actually think camping, obviously access issues aside, but if you can, I think it's also incredibly valuable as well as good value for money.
Have you camped in Botswana?
I have. I've camped in the Delta and in Chobe.
Did you have some really crazy experiences at night? Like my friends have told me about like the elephants, like putting the trunks on the tent and hearing the lions walk past.
Not, okay, I haven't had that, but definitely in the Delta, you can hear it all going on. Like you can hear lions roaring and you can hear hippos kicking off as well. We definitely also in Zambia, I was in South Lwenge and we camped there too, and definitely heard something large snuffling around our tent in the night, which also makes you realise, how powerful the wildlife is, how small we are as humans, and how important it is to respect the ecosystem and the wildlife there. But of course you always get advice from either the guides or where you're camping, and if you just stay in your tent, you're safe because they just see it as a large object. So
Yeah.
it's scary but safe.
Yeah, it's a really cool experience. I was also in South Luanga and we were at one of the hides at night, and when we came out there was just hippos and giraffes and elephants everywhere. It was a very cool experience, but also we were a little bit scared because we still had to get back to our chalet. But yeah,
I think that's one of the most, I think it's such a great park. It's really exciting to hear that you've been to. I think Zambia is really underrated and also pretty good for budget travelers, right?
Yeah, I think, again, just depending where you stay,
sure,
it could definitely be more affordable. So are you then more of like a self-drive traveler, or do you do a lot of group tours when you come to Africa?
Interestingly, everywhere else in the world, I always try to do independent travel, and I rarely do tours apart from like perhaps when it's really necessary, like, specific places in a country that you can't get to unless you take a tour.
Mm-hmm.
But in Africa, I have tended to take tours predominantly. And I think that's for a couple of reasons. As a solo female, I often like to use them to meet people initially before I then go off and do my own thing. So I've met some really great friends on group trips that I've done. Mm-hmm. I also think they do provide really good value for money, like especially overland tours that I've done. There's just no way that I could see those wealth of like flagship national parks and sites like Vic Falls for less than you're able to do as part of a group, because you're obviously tapping into like bulk discounts and on the ground contacts that tour companies are able to leverage in terms of better pricing.
Yeah, and you also don't have to deal with the car rental or like taking the fees for taking the car over the border and all of that nonsense. Just the way there's admin.
All of that sort of stuff. So I actually tend to, counter to everywhere else in the world, really recommend group travel in Africa. And I think it just allows you also to just sit back and soak it all in, because you're not having to worry about admin or border crossings or all of those sorts of things. You can really just watch the incredible scenery go past, and there's also something magic about that, I think.
No, I totally agree. I'm not one for driving. I'm a passenger princess, definitely.
Love that.
So like destinations like Namibia, where it is like 8 hours, 6 hours sometimes per day on the road, like I would rather be the one not driving than have to deal with all of that.
That's a
So,
great point. And in the heat as well, you know, there's
mhm,
all these things, yeah, to consider. And of course, you can't drive when it's dark or dawn and dusk, so
mhm,
you're quite limited. Yeah. So I think it's also different. Maybe if you're traveling as a couple or with a family or as a group, self-drive then becomes more economical. But
mhm.
if you're a solo traveler, yeah,
Yeah.
it's group all the way for me.
Yeah, yeah, it's way more affordable. When it comes to like budgeting for your trip, where do you decide to splurge?
Yeah, I don't know about you, but there's quite a lot to splurge on in Africa. Well, especially for us, because, you know, if we don't live in the continent, we're not coming across all the time. And there's just some like amazing bucket list experiences that you're not sure if you'll ever get to do in your life again. So
Mhm.
I always splurge on those. You know, some examples that come to mind are definitely gorilla trekking in Burundi, in Uganda, helicopter flight over the Okavango Delta to see it from an aerial perspective. Those were definitely things that wouldn't come under necessarily a budget traveler's
Yeah,
guidelines. But then you
definitely.
think, I don't know when I'm going to be back here. And even if I
Yeah.
come back in 10 years, the prices will definitely have gone up. So it's actually never going to be as cheap as it is now
Hmm.
when you're here, when you've already paid for the flights to get here, you've already paid for the tour or the rental car, the park fees to be here. I think in terms of value, to pay a little bit more on a bucket list experience when you're already there is actually quite good value, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. Like, that does make economic sense, I think. So when you're there, I would say if there's things you really want to do, yeah, they're worth a splurge. You won't regret it. What about you? Have
Uh,
you done the gorillas or?
I haven't yet done the gorillas, but I actually
Woo!
saw a budget gorilla on accident in Rwanda. I was doing the Diane Fossey hike and I was
Yeah.
at the back, like taking photos of plants. And then all of a sudden, I heard a sound. And I looked up and there was like three gorillas sitting in the trees. So they let me take one photo and then they like ushered me on and they wouldn't let the people come back to see them because we didn't pay.
But that's incredible.
Yeah. So
Wow.
I need to do the proper trek. It's still on my list. But I agree with you definitely. I did the hot air balloon in Namibia over the Sossusvlei Desert, and it's not the cheapest thing. I think it's 10,000 rand now, and I paid 6,000 when I did it. So, but it's worth it. It's such a cool experience. I
It's
still
worth it.
watch those videos to this day.
I know, it's just magical, and it's never going to be as cheap as it is now. So it's actually good value to go now.
100%.
Yeah.
And then just to round things off, so for someone who's never done a safari in Africa before, what would you say is your most, like, the most important advice you could give them when it comes to planning?
I think because it can be really overwhelming if it's your first time in sub-Saharan Africa to decide where to go, what to do. I think it's all about thinking about what's top of your bucket list. So if you have iconic things that you really want to see, like Victoria Falls or Etosha National Park in Namibia or Zanzibar, Stone Town in Zanzibar, then plug those things in and start to build your trip around that. I also think seasonality, which we talked about before, in terms of looking to travel ideally in shoulder season for that sweet spot between budget, crowds, and still great conditions. So think about what time of year you're traveling, also what destinations are good at that time of year. And personally, I'm not a big fan of overpacking your itinerary. It seems like a good idea when you're planning, but the reality is you will have a less rewarding experience if you're just running from park to park, moving every night, or just trying to do a checklist of things that you want to see. That is exhausting and doesn't make
Hmm.
for a fun or memorable trip. So I always think about concentrating on areas. So, for example, just do East Africa, or if you've only got a couple of weeks, just do Kenya, or look at South Africa and Mozambique, or Namibia and Botswana, but don't try to do whole huge sways.
Yeah.
You can always come back, but I think really, yeah, spending time and like reveling in the experiences that are in a particular country or set of countries and spending more time doing those and really exploring the destinations, it makes for a more meaningful trip. So bear that in mind when you're planning your safari beginners.
No, I definitely agree. That's a lesson I've had to learn. Like in my 20s, I was definitely like, I need to put as much into this itinerary as possible and like not sleep.
I mean, maybe you can get away with it in your 20s, but now I'm like, oh no.
Yeah. No, I don't have the energy for 20-year-old Lauren's itineraries anymore. I would rather have a more relaxed pace and like take things in slowly and just like really focus on like maybe like 2 or 3 things that I really want to experience rather than
Absolutely.
trying to see all the things that Pinterest has recommended.
Yeah, exactly. So if, for example, you had 2 weeks, where would you recommend first time safari goers visit?
I would say for something different, instead of like Kruger in South Africa, I would go for one of the Eastern Cape private reserves because there's not a lot of people that go there. So I feel like you can have a really amazing, very exclusive, intimate safari without the crowds at a much, even at compared to Kruger, you'll find places that are even maybe cheaper. If you are looking to maybe splurge like mid-range, I find that you can find some really nice places there, but you're gonna have this intimate experience like you are staying at a 5-star lodge because there's not a lot of other people around, and that's just like throughout the whole year. So that would
Sounds
be my
amazing. I'm going to
tip.
start taking notes as well.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Thank you so much. What a great tip.